What's up?
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Weekly Top 5's from Library Chess Productions. This is a big one and an important one for us because we love our movie directors. This is our top 5 directors of all time. I tried to not only reward high-end, I tried to reward high-end volume.
Yeah.
Right? So like, there's so many directors that I love, but I tried to narrow the list down to like guys that have made at least 3 movies that I really, really loved. So that was kind of the way that I went about picking my top 5 directors. So I'm going to get us kicked off with my number 5. My number 5 favorite director, best director of all time, Sylvester Stallone. So Stallone has done 3 movies that I legitimately love, which was Rocky II, Balboa, and the first Expendables movie. So, he's done other ones that I really, really liked. Like, again, the multiple Rocky movies that he's done. And the way that he certainly encompasses the Rocky, I mean, he is the Rocky universe. So, the fact that he's almost gatekeepered that universe the way that Bruce Willis has gatekeepered the Die Hard universe, right? Like he's the gatekeeper of Die Hard, and Stallone is the gatekeeper of Rocky. And to have made one movie that I legitimately consider a masterpiece, and 2 movies that I really, really, really loved, I had to give Stallone the nod at number 5.
Yeah, I didn't consider Stallone only because, like, the only stuff that he's done that I absolutely love from a director perspective is Rocky.
Right.
And I didn't want to give him that based on the strength of one franchise, although I guess I could have, in which case he would be one of my favorites, but I didn't give it for that reason. Because if he had, like, a bigger palette of movies that he had done that I really, really adored, then sure, but just only because Rocky's my favorite franchise. To you guys watching, he knows this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love a Rocky, but that's the reason I didn't consider Stallone for this. Okay, my number 5 is Denis Villeneuve. Now, I will say that when I was making this list, I really didn't consider it. And I wouldn't have considered him had I not gone through and watched some of his older movies this year. I decided I went on a Villeneuve kick. I was like, I want to see what he was like before he really came onto the scene. So I watched some of his older movies, and he's always been able to go between doing something legitimately beautiful to legitimately weird. There's some weird stuff in his movies, dating even back ways. I had to do a little bit of math to figure out whether he was my favorite or not, because he's had, like, I think 3 movies that I've rated a 95, but none that I'd rate 100. There was, like, Sicario, Arrival, and Blade Runner.
Yes.
He beat out this director. I will not even try to pronounce his name. I'm just going to call him the guy that did Tropical Malady. He's a director from Thailand. I cannot pronounce his name. Americans call him Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I didn't pick him because he had a movie that I wasn't such a big fan of, and that hurt his score when I added all my scores up together. But he has done one of my favorite movies of all time, so he kind of just lost to Villeneuve. I really didn't expect to see Villeneuve in this, but when I look at what I've just rated his movies, like, he has to be on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I never expected that, because I always have, like, the same bunch of directors. It's always guys with Tropical Malady. It's always one of my favorite, and then some of these other ones.
And he's one of the directors that I trust the most working right now.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I heard that, like, oh man, they're bringing back Blade Runner, I was like, oh geez, I wonder. And then when you heard that Villeneuve was at the head of it, I'm like, okay, like I'm more optimistic because of the person that's behind the camera. My number 4 director of all time is Christopher Nolan, and it extends far beyond the Batman trilogy for me. I mean, you got 2 movies in The Dark Knight and Inception that I would both call perfect movies, because I love both. I absolutely love both of them. Again, the other Batman movies I've really enjoyed. Interstellar is a movie that I enjoyed more than I think you, and more than most people. Dunkirk, I can appreciate, even though it's a movie that didn't resonate with me quite the way that I had hoped that it would. But I can, like, the technical brilliance of that movie, despite the fact that what it had in there kind of gave back an emotional resonance, at least certainly for me, I could still appreciate and acknowledge how incredible the directorial work was on that. But ultimately, with me, for Nolan, it kind of it's much more than Batman, but it does boil back down to Batman. Where especially like The Dark Knight. What else can you say about it? Like you if you've been watching these videos, you clearly know what kind of affinity that both of us have for that movie in particular. But all three of those movies, again, incredibly well done. And Inception, again, I think is a perfect movie. For a long time, I cited Inception as my favorite movie of all time. No, he belongs on this list. He deserves to be there, and he's at number 4.
Yeah, I got 2 things to say about him. One, he's slipping a bit for me because Interstellar and Dunkirk, while I can respect the directorial efforts, which is really what this is about, slipping a little bit for me. I used to think he was the most consistent director working today.
Right.
And now I'm not so sure.
Right.
However, with that said, I guess there's more than a couple things. But with that said, there's also Memento was a good movie.
Yeah.
The Prestige was a good movie.
Prestige I didn't actually
I didn't see Insomnia. That's I think the only Nolan movie I haven't seen, but that's also not seen as one of his better ones. Because I think, and the other thing, though, is what's kind of cool about Nolan is that he's a must-see director. Truly a must-see director. It's like, oh, crap, Christopher Nolan is directing this. I gotta go see it. Like, the kind of director that will drive people to the theater because you want to see what he's doing. Even though I feel he's slipping, he's going down this cold, detached route even more so than he did before, but it's not working as much for me these days. Hopefully, whatever his next movie is, he comes back.
Right.
Because Inception, like you said, was also really good. Obviously, the Dark Knight trilogy. Currently, I'm not feeling him like I was, and that's a shame because I really did think he was the most consistent director working, or one of at least in the mainstream. My number 4 is Don Hertzfeldt, who has quietly become, I mean, even though he's like an animator, but a director too, he's quietly become one of my favorite directors. Again, when I think of what I've rated his movies, and that's what it comes down to, right? Like what I've actually rated it. He has 4 movies. Now they're all like short films, but he has 4 movies that I've rated a 95. And only one other director can say that. And I won't ruin it. Right. But only one other director I can make that claim. And Villeneuve is close as well, because he has 3. He hasn't hit a movie that I thought was 100. Not quite, He has movies I basically would think like 98 if I rated like that. So,
right.
Like there's movies that are close. He's such an inspired filmmaker that not many people acknowledge because he mostly makes short films, but I mean, he's made some that are less great, but the ones at the top are so good. Like the whole It's a Beautiful Day trilogy of short films are brilliant. Both World of Tomorrow ones. His Rejected one isn't quite brilliant, but it's the one with My Spoon is too big.
Yes.
Like all these rejected videos he put together that he tried to get into advertising, and of course they reject him. Like all this stuff, he's funny. He can be informative if he wants to. He's kind of vulgar and gross sometimes. He's such a great filmmaker. So yeah,
absolutely. My number 3 director of all time is not going to come as any surprise. It's Peter Jackson, and it's funny because I even hesitated putting Peter Jackson on this list because I'm like, I don't really like those Hobbit movies, except for like the second one. Like the Desolation of Smaug is a really good movie, like worthy of being compared to the best of Lord of the Rings. But like A Hobbit's Journey and the Battle of the Five Armies, or not A Hobbit's, An Unexpected Journey rather, and Battle of the Five Armies. I mean, they're there.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of how you feel about Lord of the Rings. You're like, that first one is like, it's there, I don't really like this. And then you're like, at least Two Towers had this thing.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, that's kind of how I feel. It's like, at least the Desolation of Smaug had Smaug. Right? Like, Smaug's really good. But, I mean, it's for the Lord of the Rings. Because, I mean, like, Jesus. I mean, come on. It's the way that I am about that trilogy and about that series. And so I'm actually really excited. He's got that one coming out late this year, Mortal Engines. I'm actually excited.
Oh, he's doing that?
Yeah. I'm actually excited about that because the first trailer for that is now out, and it's like that trailer looks interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm cautiously optimistic about that, but I mean it's Peter Jackson, so here's my money, and that's just the way I feel about the guy based on those Rings movies, and that's why he's my number 3. Something that I'm going to be fixing in post by saying this statement: Peter Jackson's not actually directing Mortal Engines; he's just like producing and co-writing it or something like that. So he's not actually directing Mortal Engines, but the fact that his name is attached to it very strongly, I'm like, all right, let's see where this goes. So my apologies; he's not actually directing that movie.
See, Peter Jackson is one of my least favorite, probably mainstream directors. Like, because, I mean, there's terrible directors who make all terrible movies that I'm not counting here. No. But because when I think of the 3 movies that I've seen, 2 Lord of the Rings, which I didn't like, and Lovely Bones, which I gave like a 60, which was okay. Yeah. But, like, hardly inspiring. I've kind of wanted to go back and do his earlier work, like Heavenly Creatures and Dead Alive and stuff. Yeah. Like when he was doing these weirder, like Dead Alive, especially these weirder movies that everyone's like, this guy used to make these strange movies, and now he's doing Lord of the Rings. Like, he's had such an interesting career in that regard, because he started off with these, anyway, but I don't know. I've only seen 3 of his movies, and I didn't overly care for them. Alright, so my number 3 is Ingmar Bergman. Now I'm going film snob on this.
There we go. Nose is very clearly pointed that way. Anyways, go ahead.
The legendary Ingmar Bergman, dead now, lost him and Kurt Vonnegut, whatever, in the same year. That was a real depressing year for me. My favorite author and one of my favorite directors in one year. But anyway.
That was like 2016 when all the actors in Hollywood died in the same year.
Here's the thing. He basically never left his comfort zone. I mean, he did a weirder movie in Persona. He did some horror and he did a horror movie or two, but mind you, it was an older horror movie. They just and foreign kind of just feels different than what we are accustomed to in North America for horror movies. But if you want a drama and a bleak drama about the human condition, you go to Bergman. His fundamentals are so strong. Like, he never really did, except for like I said, Persona. He never really did that much that I know of that was flashy. You just look at him like, okay, he's got the fundamentals down. He's brilliant at it. He makes these dramas, and that's what he did for the most part. And he's so good at it that, I mean, there's a reason that he's so influential, and so many of his movies are classics. And like The Seventh Seal with the chess scene's been parodied. Like, there's been parodies of that so much, and people know that scene even if they've never seen that movie. And there's like Wild Strawberries, that was awesome. The world of cinema lost a lot, because really, when it comes down to it, Bergman is one of those directors where your favorite filmmaker, like Bergman was their favorite filmmaker, you know what I mean? Or one of. So, yeah, Bergman, legend, my 3rd favorite director of all time, but I have to be in a specific mood for his movies too.
Right, yeah, because certainly when you have a situation like that where you know what his bread and butter is, if you know you're not like, I'm not emotionally prepared for this movie right now, because I know, and I don't know exactly what I'm going to get, but I know what it's going to feel like. And no, absolutely. No, I don't know that I've actually watched a Bergman movie.
Autumn Sonata, there's another one.
Autumn Sonata, okay, right on. Well, I'll just grab one and
just throw
a random one in there. But like you say, when you have somebody that like he's your favorite director's favorite director, it's like, okay, fair enough. That says quite a bit about the legacy and the catalog that person left. So my number 2 director of all time is a man that, if I can kind of change my physical position, I can try my best to make myself look like, at least in 1 second. It's nobody's gonna grab that. It's Stanley Kubrick. I don't have the beard to pull that off, but I can at least try. So Stanley Kubrick is someone who I've seen, according to Criticker anyway, I've apparently only seen 4 of his movies, but I've never ranked one of his movies lower than a 90. So you're talking 2001, Full Metal Jacket, Doctor Strangelove, and The Shining, and that's the bing, 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 bing. Like that's your 4. Like if that's your starting 4, have that as your opening tee shot and try to top it, right?
Yep.
So, and the way that Kubrick has influenced a generation of filmmakers, and when you can watch a movie and just be like, there's a Kubrick influence. There's a Kubrick influence right there. Oh, look at that. They had that scene specifically in a bathroom, and they had that scene in there for a reason. That's a Kubrick influence. And the performances, and again, I think Full Metal Jacket's his best movie. I know Tyler disagrees with that, but I think Full Metal Jacket's his best movie. And the performances that he got out of the guys in Full Metal Jacket, I thought were tremendous. And then for somebody like the Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, he just went and got a Gunnery Sergeant. Like that's not an actor. That's just the guy. And the way that he can frame certain things to make them look so much more menacing than they would normally be. I love watching a Kubrick movie and just enjoying the directorial porn that I'm about to watch. So Kubrick's my number 2.
So I was sitting here while you were talking, wondering why Kubrick wasn't on mine.
Mm-hmm.
Because I generally, when people ask your favorite directors, he's one that
just comes to mind.
Comes to mind, and the reason I didn't put him even at number 5 was only because when I looked at my ratings, and I tried to really stick to that this time.
Yes.
Because sometimes I fall victim to, oh, this guy's one of my favorite directors, but it's really only because I've loved 2 or 3 movies. But the problem with Kubrick for me was that, I mean, mind you, these are 2 short films, but he made 2 short films which I didn't like.
Okay.
And he made A Clockwork Orange, which I do not care for. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Impressively made, but almost a problem of like that cold detachment that we always talk about with him not working.
Right. Okay.
But then besides that, you had 2001, one of my favorite movies of all time. Eyes Wide Shut, which I think is one of the most underrated movies of all time. It's actually my second favorite Kubrick.
Okay.
And then I had The Shining, I had Dr. Strangelove, I had Full Metal Jacket, all 90s. And then I had, I can't remember if it was Barry Lyndon. I don't remember if that's the one I saw. Yeah, I think it was 85.
Okay.
And then we got to some short films, which I didn't like, and A Clockwork Orange. So that's why he didn't make mine. But really, when I think about it, I could have included him probably in Villeneuve's place, or even Hertzfeldt's place. So my number 2 is Andrei Tarkovsky, who I've already mentioned numerous times in any of our videos.
Yeah, he's been mentioned a few times.
Now, he's made a movie or 2 that I'm not absolutely in love with, so I'm kind of being a little bit of a hypocrite here. But the difference, I guess, between like a Kubrick and a Tarkovsky to me is Tarkovsky has influenced me in a way that Kubrick is not. I love Kubrick.
Yes.
You know, his movies are so good. But the way that Tarkovsky shoots things has, on a personal level, influenced me.
Yeah.
With his long shots. So, maybe above any other director, except for my number 1, he has influenced me the most as a person, as a creator, for what little creating I've done. Or what I want to do.
Right.
And he just, like, he made Stalker. He made Ivan's Childhood. Like, those are 2 of my, like, absolute, Stalker's definitely one of my favorite movies, and Ivan's Childhood is one of my favorite war movies of all time. And he also made The Mirror and The Steamroller and The Violin, 2 other movies I really loved. And none of his movies that I've seen, I've rated lower than an 80. Even Andrei Rublev or whatever, while I don't absolutely love that movie, I admire the technical aspects so much I still rated it an 80. Even though, just on entertainment factor, I wouldn't do that. But I just admired it so much that I could get past it. So that's why Tarkovsky is so high, because I've literally never rated anything lower than an 80. And I'm sure he's done some movies that are lower than an 80. But I just haven't seen them.
Right.
So
we're back to the number 1s. My number 1 director of all time, Silent Bob. It's Kevin Smith.
I guessed it.
And the only difference to me in ranking between Kevin Smith and Stanley Kubrick. Well, I mean, I've seen more Kevin Smith movies.
That sentence.
Which is
Kevin Smith and Stanley Kubrick.
The only difference between Kevin Smith and Stanley Kubrick.
Even Kevin Smith, if he heard this, would be like, what are you doing?
No, but in terms of ranking, like the highest end rankings, in those terms, the only difference between them is Kevin Smith has made a movie that I legitimately think is 100. And Kubrick has not.
Yeah.
Kubrick has like 395s and a 90. Yeah. Will Smith has 100, 295s and a 90. So he's got that one movie that was just like, and that's why I have to put him up there. And it's on volume. Like Ed just said, I've only seen 4 Kubrick movies. Well, I've seen almost everything that Kevin has done. There's just like upwards into like 10. So, I mean, it's on volume, it's got to be there. And in terms of on the high-end rankings, it's got to be there. I've nary met a Kevin Smith movie that I didn't at least appreciate on some level, and that's because I haven't watched Yoga Hosers. So, you know what I mean?
Keep your positive opinion on
keep the
Kevin
vibes.
Smith.
But yeah, no, like I can watch those movies that aren't necessarily the best thing since sliced bread and still just be like, "Aw, Kev," like, you know, and that's subjectivity, and that's fanboying, but that's kind of what this is. So, I mean, he's got to take my number one spot on volume and on high end, you know, making movies that will be with me for my whole life. So I have to go Kevin Smith.
I don't know that there's a director that I've seen more movies from. I don't know. I can't remember how many he's done, but I've seen all of his movies, I think. Even some of the ones that he did, like little short films, like anthology movies.
Yeah.
Like the one last year, I can't remember what it was called, but his short film in it actually sucked. But anyway, so in that way, it's like his name will always drive me to a movie. Now, mind you, we don't always get his movies, but whenever we can, I will go see a Kevin Smith movie. I love the man. I love listening to him talk. But I don't think he's like one of the best directors.
No, in
writer,
terms of his,
writer. I'm there.
Yeah.
I am there. Even though he has made some stinkers, and that's another thing. Like Yoga Hosers sucked. Tusk was really good up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And I've kind of lost it. But like Red State was fantastic. And if he would have made more movies like that, right, maybe in a director role, I would see him as that. But but really, when you think about it, one of the only movies he's ever done that he just directed was Cop Out. Now there was more wrong with Cop Out than his direction, but it is the movie that he didn't write and he just directed. And I know that you can't blame it all on him, but he is a director, and it wasn't a good movie. But yeah, I love Kevin Smith. I considered him, but then I thought, well, no, because it's his writing that I love. I adore his writing, and his directorial ability is fine, but as we've joked about and as he's joked about and stuff, it's like he doesn't move the camera.
Right.
He doesn't really do anything from a directorial perspective that would make me put him on. But that's me kind of being a little like literal with it. Like Kevin Smith can envision stuff in his mind,
right?
And I don't want people to think that I hate his work as a director, because it's totally fine for what he does, but I just never view his directing as the star of the film. It's always his writing and his characters.
Yeah.
Which is why I love his movies. Alright, ladies and gents, here's my number one, and it's Harmony Korine. But she saw it coming. I don't think there was a way not to, if you know me.
Right.
So this guy has made 3 movies that I've rated 100. I'm undeniably a nut hugger. But,
yes.
But there's a reason I'm a nut hugger. This is what I hate about people's arguments sometimes when they're like, you're just a nut hugger. It's like, well, yeah, because he does stuff I love, and that's what brought me to him. I didn't wake up one day and was like, I got a nut hugger director. Oh, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Right?
I'll pick this one.
Now, with that said, I will admit, you gotta be in a certain mood for his movies. For sure, because they're very unconventional, and he gets a lot of hate for a lot that he does. Like, he doesn't get good Rotten Tomatoes scores. A lot of people don't like him. I can't remember if it was Gummo or Julian Donkey Boy, because I couldn't find the video, because a lot of the At the Movies videos are gone, which is a shame. But I was trying to find the review. It was Ebert, and I think there was this woman on there as a guest critic, I think.
Okay.
And they were talking about one of these movies, and one of them said, 95% of people will not like this movie. It's true. Yeah. 95% of people will not like Harmony Korine. However, I do, and it's because he's so different. He's one of the few directors that I can honestly say is different. Like, you hear that a lot. Yeah, I love him or you hate him. It's not true for most people. Like, people just like to throw that around, and I have on occasion, of just like, you're going to love it or you hate it. It's like, no, Harmony Korine is a director you love or you hate. So he warrants these, like, strong reactions. And like,
he's polarizing.
Yeah. I've given a 300 to 95 and 90. I really like his short films. I'm currently rewatching some of his movies for a feature on this channel that may already be out by the time this is uploaded. I don't know. But yeah, Harmony Korine is my favorite director.
Alright folks, that's going to do it for another weekly Top 5. Like, comment, subscribe, make sure you watch The Beach Bum, follow us down here, and we'll see you next week.
See ya!